The life of the modern gamer is hard. I know how this sounds, please bear with me. Each day you wake up with a slightly renewed faith in humanity. Have your dose of distilled will to live, and before commuting to your daily drainage of said will, you open the news. The unthinkable lies before you. Things are happening. Things are happening so hard, in fact, that they were also happening yesterday. But somehow you are able to convince yourself that the hand of God, sponsored by Lockheed Martin, would make it all go away. But the conclusion is inevitable. The hand is there, but not to fix your problems. Just outside the window it sits, sizing you up for a uniform or for a picture frame. So with heavier feet than usual, you traipse to work. And then back home, desperate for a distraction from life. As a loyal worshipper at the altar of RGB, you turn to the worst hobby of them all. Video games. God help us all. Today though something is different. Your normal dose of verbal abuse coming from a 10-year-old isn't enough. Matter of fact, video games in general don't hit like they used to anymore. You need something extra. You have very little free time after all, so it would be a waste to spend it all just doing one thing. Maybe if you enriched your gameplay with a self-help podcast in the background, you would climb the corporate ladder just a tiny bit faster and finally escape the matrix. Presumably using the same knife that you used to cut the irony of that statement. If this feels familiar in any way, you aren't alone. I'm right there with you. A few years ago I too fell into the trap of what I came to call game rot. That is the act of distracting yourself from an activity that you started to distract yourself, typically through the use of superficial, lame oratory pizzle yankings, or slop for short. A couple of years on I realized that I neither liked the games I was playing nor the shit I was listening to, but the inertia kept me going, to the point when I was getting uncomfortable doing any of those things separately from one another. I know this might be revolutionary knowledge to some of you, but you are a monkey. Your brain is only good at focusing on one attention-demanding task at a time. And when you throw a few of those things at once, it becomes a jumbled up mess of pictures and noises that keep you stimulated, yes, but also remove almost all meaning and enjoyment from all the included activities. Studies, for example, show consistently that what we deludedly call multitasking is just a process of rapidly switching attention from one task to another, which makes it pretty much impossible to coherently process what you see or hear, increases mental fatigue, and makes your memory worse. So in a way, not only are we becoming stupider, but we're also becoming worse at remembering how it is that we became like this in the first place. To put this in different terms, game rot made me stop enjoying Doom Eternal. As it turns out, after returning to Monkey enough times, even games you think are the absolute peak of human achievement can become drab and unexciting. The prospect of this is honestly scary. So scary that it got me out of the haze and made me realize that this shit had gotten out of hand. For God's sake, I was playing RPGs with subtitles only because I couldn't give up the sweet voice of Andrew Huberman telling me how to wake up in the morning. My backlog was growing and growing and growing because I was coming back to the same old 3 games that I knew like the back of my hand. Any more mental load than that, and the comfortable cradle of stimulation would become unbearable. And to add insult to injury, when I finally came out of the haze, I was completely unable to focus on anything for the rest of the day. If you know what brain fog is, this was a brain void. It was staring at me, and I could do nothing but stare back. Unsurprisingly enough, there are psychological terms to describe this state. It's called executive function depletion due to digital fatigue. Essentially what this means is that your brain gets so overstimulated by dopamine that it impacts your ability to carry out your goals. If you don't believe me, and why would you, let me put on the pretentious liberal glasses and show you some. According to a 2013 study, media multitasking is a unique predictor of both anxiety and depression. The word unique there means that it's bad for you regardless of other variables like your personality traits or how much you use said media. Another 2023 study done on medical students concluded that those who were higher on the smartphone addiction scale showed more mental fatigue and scored lower on the cognitive flexibility inventory, which measures 1. Your ability to accept and generate multiple solutions to complex problems, and 2. Your ability to perceive difficult situations as somewhat controllable. The above findings are reflected in the EEG of heavy multitaskers, which indicate reduced task performance efficiency and increased cognitive load. The irony here, of course, is that many of the podcasts I was listening to were warning me about these exact things, but how could I have listened to them if I was too busy farming pros in Dark Souls? Now, of course, none of the above studies are specifically about gamers, but the circumstances are similar enough for us to draw conclusions that apply to ourselves as well. And to summarize, get your shit together. I don't care what games you play or what bullshit you listen to, but for the love of God, just do one of them at a time. You are giving away the only thing that makes you more conscious than the flies infesting your profoundly neglected room. And this doesn't only apply to games, of course. The same goes for music or movies. We're now getting to a point where movies and shows are explicitly made for people who only pay attention 10% of the time. They are treating us like toddlers. And frankly, that's for a good reason. After decades of unrelenting research and iteration, it's no wonder that the providers of our media have gotten so good at exploiting our attention that they start overlapping each other, mashing our brains in at an unprecedented pace. The fact that we fell victims to it isn't because we are weak or stupid, even though we are both of those things. It's because the tools being used against us started to be sharpened way before we were born. But if we engage in a bit of introspection, we can at the very least notice the effects of these tools on our brains, and if nothing else, recognize that there is at least a problem to be solved there. So what can you do about it? How can you break from the hellish inertia of distraction? Ideally, what we'd want to do is force ourselves somehow to undivide our attention and relearn how to focus on one thing. I found that this didn't really work for me, because my ADHD brain simply can't focus on long-term goals alone. A better idea for both me and my fellow sufferers would be to give yourself a short-term as well as a long-term incentive. What that might be, I have no idea. But I can tell you what worked for me. Yapping. More specifically, talking to the games or books I like to people or to a microphone, which presumably also reaches some people. Knowing that at some point you're gonna have to analyze and come to a conclusion about a piece of media forces you to pay attention to it, and what you get in return is the human joy of socializing, as soy as that sounds, or even good old social capital. Even though the social benefit one gets from making an 8,000 word essay on a 15-year-old game is dubious at best. I'm not saying that you should also necessarily start a YouTube channel. I can't believe I'm saying this, but even joining a Reddit community about a game and engaging in discussions about it can be enough. You can also try meditating or playing games offline, or either of the 5 billion ways people swear will boost your focus and inner chakra flow or whatever. But the point is that now, after a couple of months of mostly playing games with the intention of reviewing them on this channel, I found that, for a lack of a better term, them sons of bitches have quite a bit to offer. It helps, of course, that the first game I decided to play on here is one of the best RPGs I've laid my hands on, but there is also a lot of value to games that I didn't like as much, or even ones that I wanted to make videos on but gave up halfway through. There is always something to learn when engaging with a work of art on a deeper level, even when said work of art isn't very good. You learn what makes game design and storytelling tick, but most importantly, you learn about yourself. And as the saying goes, know thy fucking enemy. Thanks for watching. Good night.